welcome to the Blood Brothers podcast. We are tonight myself and Mr. Chris McDonald, and we are joined in our guest seat by Mel McGrath, who is not only an author of multiple titles, but also the co-founder of Killer Woman and award-winning writer of fiction and non-fiction. So we have a plenty ton to talk about. Welcome.
Yeah, that makes me, thank you. That makes me sound very, very busy, much busier than I think I actually am.
Ha, I bet you're like a swan just gliding gracefully over the top of the busy surface of life.
With some very big legs panicking underneath.
I've been I'm obsessed at the moment. We've got tons of Canada geese on the canal where I live, and they've all had their babies, and they're an annoying bird the rest of the year, but at the moment they're just absolutely adorable. So I'm looking for swan babies and geese babies. Anyway, that's a slight segue.
We have a giant seagull the size of, well, basically a Panzer tank, nesting in our chimney.
Oh,
I'm terrified that at some point or other it's just going to fall through.
Yeah.
It's just going to be this great kind of crashing sound, and the chimney is going to disintegrate, and about 25 Panzer tank chicks are going to fall into the cottage.
Steal your chips on the way down.
They're scary beasts, I tell you.
They are.
Is it noisy?
Sorry?
Is it really noisy inside the chimney?
Yeah, especially when one of them comes bringing food. There's a whole kind of chorus that goes, a whole song and dance that goes on.
Yeah.
I
I had jackdaws in my chimney in my old place, and then came down into the dining room at one point. It was the only open fire in the house, and came down and the whole dining room was just covered in sticks. We're like, what the hell happened? And the whole nest had collapsed inside, sticks and corpses of birds that hadn't made it out. And we're like,
oh, goodness.
Anyway, this isn't what we're here to talk about. This is crazy. We're here to talk about two wrongs.
Well, maybe some corpses a bit.
Yeah, there's always got to be corpses. We must always have corpses.
There's a t-shirt for you.
Yes,
It would be a bit disappointing without corpses, wouldn't it?
It would.
Absolutely. Worst crime ever. Would you mind giving those who haven't read or heard a brief introduction to Two Wrongs?
Oh, okay. Well, it's a psychological thriller set in Bristol around a fictional university where a number of students have seemingly taken their lives. And one of these students' great friend, Nevis, determines to find out what's behind this spate of seeming suicides. Her mother gets involved, her kind of hippie mother gets involved, and the fun and games ensue.
Brilliant. And it's because we were talking about it before and saying this is a really difficult one to talk about without spoilers.
It is really difficult. Yeah, I've rehearsed that one several times. I've had to do several different versions. Yeah,
it's just, I always find that really hard when you go, and I really love this. Oh no, I can't talk about that. But so where did this come from? Where did this idea of the seeming suicide?
Well, there have been a number of real life events around university campuses in the UK and the US on a similar theme. And I guess I wanted to explore a world that's very sort of enclosed. It's almost like, I mean, I don't know if you know Bristol, but it's really dominated by its universities. And I love Bristol, it's a wonderful city. But you get that real sense that it's almost like a goldfish bowl. And it's quite, well, I describe it as feral. It's quite a wild place, isn't it? It's sort of the Wild West, really. And I wanted to set a novel there with the Clifton Suspension Bridge at its heart,
Yep.
and to explore the kind of the dark things that happen in worlds where people aren't quite sure of their ground, and there are a lot of pressures, they're under a lot of pressure, and there's maybe not much help for them. And stretching across the whole of this is this great dark vision of a bridge and the abyss below it. So it's kind of, it's a wonderful city, but there's something sort of menacing about it that I really wanted to know.
I do. I mean, I love that sort of, it's the thing about, and Bristol, as you say, because it is so dominated by its universities. I used to live in Newport. My mum used to work in Bristol, so I spent a lot of time there. And it's even inside normal university standards, it's got a very insulated feeling about it, that that everything's sort of in a bubble that's preparing you for real life, but it's like a microcosm of the life outside it, and then it rubs up against some really dark, dirty low life as well, all around those beautiful areas. And it's a mad city. It really is quite unique.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to explore that whole idea of, you know, dark things happening in among the ivory towers, so to speak, because I think universities can be really dark places. They're full of young people who haven't quite yet sorted out who they are, and everything's very intense. There's very intense friendships, and there are very intense enmities. I mean, anyone who's been to university can attest to that. You know, someone who's your best friend one week is your worst enemy the next week. There's all of those, there's all that hormonal stuff sloshing about.
And that strange sense of inventing yourself away from who you were at school, and you know, it's like, it's that chrysalis thing, you know, that you can become somebody completely different because nobody knows you, and but it doesn't always work out, you know.
No, you don't always get the shape and color of butterflies. Sometimes it can be some kind of giant monster moth that comes out of there.
The three-winged fool.
You mentioned about the characters while you were introducing the book. Were they? How do you form your characters? Do you have a good sense of who they are before you start writing, or do you sort of let it guide you throughout?
Well, I really like to work with different points of view, because I think that really works well especially in the psychological novel, because you get really inside the different heads and the different perspectives of people. And I've always been more interested in why-done-its than who-done-its. And in order to do that, you've really got to kind of bed into the brain of the psyche of the people the characters that you're creating. And I've always been interested in mother-daughter relationships, and father-son relationships, and mother-son relationships, and there are all of those in Two Wrongs. And it seems to me they don't get enough of a look in. And actually those relationships are often really complicated, and they go back a long way, and there's lots of tangling that can happen. And so I really wanted to set a novel where the daughter and the mother are kind of, if you like, the good guys, and there's another son-mother relationship who are the bad guys, so to speak, and really explore the complexities in that. And you know, just for contrast, I wanted, so I came up with Nevis first, who's the daughter, and she's someone who is, I think it's fair to say, sort of vulnerable. She hasn't been diagnosed with anything, but she's someone who really struggles to read social cues and to know why people are up to the things that they're up to. But on the other hand, she has a brilliant analytical brain. So she's incredibly good at putting things together. And Honor, her mother, with whom she's kind of estranged, is her sort of polar opposite. She's a former New Age traveller. She's a bit hopeless. She's kind of failed to launch. She lives on a sort of leaking houseboat in a dark part of Hackney, and I wanted them to find, they're estranged, or more or less, when the book starts, and I wanted them in the course of the novel to find a way back to one another. So again, that, I guess that theme of bridges, you know, how do you find a way back to someone who you are very enmeshed with and entangled with? And I guess I mean, I didn't think about this at the time, but at the time I was writing it, my mother very sadly was dying, and I was thinking a lot in my mind about mother-daughter relationships and what you do to reconcile. You know, I was really at the point where I was thinking, I'm going to lose my mum, and I want to have reconciled. I want to have tied up all the loose ends. And that really got me thinking about, gosh, you know, the loose ends from 25, 30 years ago that you kind of might have forgotten about. And there's a big theme in Two Wrongs, that something terrible happened in Honna's life that also impacted Nevis when she was a baby, that she doesn't know anything about because she was a baby. And that has kind of informed the whole of their relationship without Nevis, the daughter, even knowing that that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Those whether you're aware of them or, you know, we're conscious of them as a child, there's so many little things that impacted the way your parents were together or parents behaved with you that just shape, you know, it's like how an entire life is shaped. And then how do you come back from those things if you do discover truths or realities after the event? But
yeah, I think that's something we can all relate to in one form or another. And Cullen, who's the kind of Professor Cullen, who's the sort of villain of the piece, he has a very complicated relationship with his mother, and one in which I hope that the things that transpire between them kind of make sense in the context of that relationship. It's really toxic. And again, I think that's something that doesn't get explored enough. You know, there's a lot of psychological fiction that explores the relationship between two romantic partners or sexual partners, but very little that explores those relationships between child and parent. And they're so fundamental to everything we are, you know, the kind of lives we end up having.
So, yeah, there's the sort of groundwork for every other relationship that goes on with our own children. And, you know, I mean, I can count the number of mistakes I made trying not to be like my father. You know, do you know what I mean? Like those kind of things that just they influence every single aspect. But there's such a rich seam to mine for characterization and for just things that will take you to the depths of your limits and your personality and your how you interact with other people. So it's a fantastic thing for psychological thriller to have those, and it adds just the most amazing chilling weight to Two Wrongs, because it's, as you say, it's something we can all identify with to a greater or lesser extent. But
it sort of helped that I'm part way through training at the moment to be a psychotherapist, so
this is very handy.
It's really handy. There's actually quite a lot of crossover, more than you would imagine. But of course, an awful lot of that training is precisely about what happens to you very early on that you don't even necessarily recognize at the time, and comes back to haunt you in a big way. And in Two Wrongs, things that happen to people when they're young and impressionable and so on come back to haunt them in a big way. Yeah,
exactly. And this is due out end of June, isn't it?
Yeah, in paperback, the end of June. Yeah, it's already out in hardback.
Okay, so I get because you can never get the right dates on things, and I'm like, I know I've got hardback, but is that a preview copy, or is that a book? Where is everything? But so paperback's out, and the hardback's already doing incredibly well.
The cover is
Thank you.
beautiful.
The cover
really,
is-
really nice colours, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, isn't it? I'm so lucky that HQ art department are just absolute geniuses, I think. And it's an absolutely wonderful cover. And I've had some fabulous reviews, which is always nice. It's always a big sigh of relief when that happens.
It's funny, we've spoken to so many authors over the last year, and it doesn't matter how many books everybody's published, that releasing it into the wild and waiting for everybody outside of the team and outside of who you know, waiting for those first sort of responses to come back and go, okay, people are liking it, it's fine. Breathe out again. It never seems to get easier somehow.
No, it's scary. I mean, you know, I'm I don't know, 15 books on or something, if you include fiction and non-fiction, and that bit never gets any less scary. But I think if it did, you wouldn't be doing your job properly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, somebody had posted a clip of David Bowie having a little chat about pushing yourself a bit further and saying, just, you know, if you feel comfortable what you're doing creatively, then you're probably not doing it right. And just to push out that little bit further where your feet don't touch the ground, and then you're treading water properly, then you're in the place to do something exciting. But I found it terrifying moving from screenwriting to novel writing, because we were talking to Joe Spain a couple of weeks ago and just saying there's a thing with screenwriting that there's so many people involved that by the time it hits the screen, your words are no longer the words that you put on the paper and not delivered in the way they were in your head, and you know, it's very unrecognizable as the piece that you created. Whereas when my first novel came out, I was just like, oh my god, this is, you know, editors and everybody aside, this is my brain versus the reader. Sorry everyone, where we go.
Yeah, but that's also what makes it delicious. And I hear you. I've done a bit of screenwriting myself, and I do bits and pieces of sort of documentary voiceover and things like that. And you're always mindful that ultimately it's not your piece.
Yeah,
it's either the director's piece or the producer's piece, or it's a collaborative piece, but it's not your voice, even
not
though
in the same
it
way
might be your words in the same way. But yeah, book stuff is very exposing, and as you read, there's always, I mean, I find it impossible to read without going editing, thinking, oh, why did I use that word? Or, oh, I repeated myself. However many times you get, the copy editor goes through it, and the proofreader goes through it, and you go through it, and the editor goes through it. There are always, on every page, there's always the thing that makes you go, ah!
Yeah. I on the last book, somebody had given me a little tip for finding all the things that just don't sit right, which was to read it aloud, and I was like, that's ridiculous. But then I sat and read it over the course of 3 days to the dogs, who were thrilled, obviously, but read it aloud as if I was reading it to an audience, and my god, the things you spot just reading it aloud rather than reading it on the page and your brain filling in all the gaps, but also just things that feel clunky when you say them and you think, no, that's not good, that's not a nice sentence, it hurts to speak it.
I think in dialogue in particular, that, you know, you can catch yourself out using really literary dialogue. No one actually says that.
Yeah, exactly. Or the fact that every character uses the other character's name in every sentence. You know, like, God, if somebody did that to me in real life, they'd be dead within the first chapter. Stop that passive-aggressive name using right now. But
yeah, and just getting people to talk in the way that they would talk, that's different from each other. You know, I think you have to really listen really hard as a novelist to the way that people talk in order to be able to understand how to reproduce that on a page. Because as we're talking, we're not noticing how everyone else is talking. Obviously in a novel, people do need to talk differently. You know, an old hippie like Honor is going to speak in a very different way from a professor of biomedicine.
And trying to drop your own voice, those people who know you really well and go, oh yeah, I can really hear your voice when I read that. You're like, oh bugger. You're not supposed to be able to hear my voice at all. But Yeah, little nods in there. How did it come about in the first place, your writing, being a writer? Was that a childhood passion or something that
Oh,
developed?
you mean 100,000 years ago, in the time when dinosaurs roamed the land?
Back in black and white, when one had to chip it out of a stone.
Well, actually, the answer to that is really, really simple, Sean. I just got sacked from every job that I had.
Excellent work. I hope for malpractice and other ill intent. Sorry, I didn't mean to murder her, but she did steal the last of the milk.
It would have been Mel practice in my case.
Excellent. I love it. Keep that going in the plan.
No, I mean, I think I was a passionate reader. Have you ever met a writer who wasn't a passionate reader in their childhood? Shaking of heads. No, that's
no.
And I think it took me a long time. It may not sound like it, but my parents are working class and from the East End of London. May not sound like it for me. And it took me a long time to think that someone like me can write, someone like me can have something to say that people might want to read or that might entertain people. So I wrote my first book when I was 28, I think, which was a travel book. And actually my dad had just died very unexpectedly. And I think that shook up my world so much that I had that attitude of, well, I've got to get serious now. I've really got to do the thing that I actually really want to do and stop pretending to do the thing I don't want to do that I keep getting sacked from anyway.
Yeah.
So
your life is short moment where you go, oh, right, hang on.
Yeah.
This. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you as a writer, you have to feel that you've got something to say in the world that is worth saying and that other people might connect to. And that's quite a big ask when you're young and you're kind of trembling and kind of thinking, well, who's going to listen to me? And I think particularly someone from my background, first to go to university, all of that stuff. And my first book won a big prize and I thought, oh, okay, now I'm fixed. That's it. I'll just go from strength to strength. And I didn't realize, because I hadn't read whoever it was who said, you're only as good as your last project.
Yeah. And that's also, that's the thing that I find most scary about novels, is it's so subjective and it's so zeitgeisty and it's so trying to predict that 2 years out. The number of people who, when pandemic started, were like, bugger, I have to put that pandemic book away now. Nobody wants to read about that, or hey, I'll get it out, whichever way they went. But trying to know, again, it's sort of trying to write something that's in your heart, that it gives you passion first, because trying to predict what's going to be making people tick in 2 years' time, it's just hiding to nothing, isn't it? And I don't know. I think there's just sort of a thing that you go, if you're going to get through writing the book, write it for you first and for everybody else and on the edits, because it's just such a process, isn't it? And it's got to make you wake up in the night and go, oh, that's it, right? I've had my idea. Yeah. This is how it works.
And I think the two things that that readers spot immediately are if you're inauthentic and if you were bored. And you can't afford to be either of those things, because they're undisguised on the page, I think. And if you're excited, I mean, if I write a scene where something exciting happens and my heart's not racing, that scene goes in the bin.
Yeah.
If I write something sad and I'm not feeling a bit tearful at the end of it, gone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's also, when I was reading back through some of the early chapters of my current work in progress the other day, and I was like, I'm bored reading this. That whole bit's gone. It's like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. It's just, I think sometimes you're getting the words on the page and then you go, this is not the right way for these to be presented. I'm bored reading it. And if I'm bored reading it, nobody else is going to bother. And that's such a good benchmark, like I want to make myself cry. I want my characters to surprise me. I want to laugh, because if I'm not doing it, then Jesus, the audience are going to see it coming, aren't they? So
yeah. I mean, I am a planner, but I never ever write to my plan.
No, see, I love that, because I plan, and I love it. I love stationery. I love diagrams. I love everything. And that's the joy I get of planning. And I plan it all out, and I put it out, and I've got it all on little record cards, and it all makes perfect sense. And I put it there, and then I write the book. And then you go back and go, what was I thinking? What was even that? What was that bit? But it's fun.
Have you ever gone back to your pitch that you used to pitch to an agent or a publisher or something? That's good for a laugh. You're like, what?
I love going back to a pitch and thinking, well, that's a bloody good idea for a book. It's not what I wrote, but it's a bloody good idea. I'm gonna write that one next.
I wonder if publishers are wise to this. I wonder if they kind of just know that they're never ever going to get the book that they get a pitch for.
I think half of it is, can you just torture a writer enough to make them write a synopsis that's engaging, and then go, yeah, sure, we'll take that. Now write us something decent. I don't know. They're just awful, aren't they? They're so hard to write pitches and synopses, and they drive me mad.
Yeah, I mean, I just see it as a sales document, actually. If you can get someone to think, oh, what happens next? If you get an editor to think, what happens next?
Yeah.
Then that's your job done.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, I love it. I love that, if you get somebody's first 25 pages or so, and by the end of 25 pages, you're absolutely hooked. By the end of 10, you're hooked. But by the end of 25, you're like, God, right, I need the rest of it. Where is it? That's one of those moments where you go, right, we're onto something here. Very rarely does it fall down so badly by the end that, it doesn't work out. But I do read a lot of submissions like that, and you get very sort of jaded quite quickly with reading the first 5 pages and go, God, I've read it before, seen it before, heard it before. And you just, it's not to be dismissive at all, but it's like you need to find those voices that are going to hold you, because it's such a competitive market, and it's so hard to rise above them. So yeah.
But I think the only unique thing you have is you. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else has been said before, done before. But your perspective is the only thing. But to go back to looking at, I was a book reviewer for a long time, and what I always did was read the first 10 pages and then read the last 10 pages. And if I didn't care how they got from the first 10 pages to the last 10 pages, then I wouldn't review the book.
That is such a time-saving tip. Everybody going, I'm 92 pages in and I still don't really know what's going on. Put it down, walk away. If you don't know, you don't care.
Yeah, Can I ask for me, it's all about the journey. It's not about, for me, I mean, I like a twist, but if you have to invest hours and hours and hours of ploughing through dirgy prose and two-dimensional characters to get to the twist
that you'll never see coming,
that you'll never see coming, then it's not worth the investment for me. I have to enjoy the ride.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about a unique idea, and your Arctic crime series. I mean, what a cool idea to set it there. Can you tell me why? Why did you decide to set it there? Was it just because it had never really been done before?
Oh no, I love that series. It's currently being developed in the States and Canada.
Very cool.
So we'll see. We know that that's always a big if. So I wrote that series. A while ago now. But as a result of having gone up there, actually, I was working as a journalist, and the Daily Telegraph sent me up to cover a polar bear hunt, right up on Ellesmere Island, which is the most northerly landmass in the world. It's kind of north of Greenland, right up near the North Pole. And to cut a long story short, it was this tiny, like 5'2" dentist from Chicago who paid a huge amount of money to go and kill this splendid thing, Napoleon complex, just a bit. And he pegged it, I'm rather pleased to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, what a shame.
That's a terrible shame, particularly in the way that it happened, because he
filming at the time?
He raised his rifle, and you know, these creatures are huge when they get up on their hind legs, and you have to, when they're hunted, you have to make them get up on their hind legs because they're so well insulated, and their sort of vulnerable bit is near their heart, obviously. They're 15 feet high. I mean, they're giant and terrifying, and they will follow you for a month until they get you. And he was so terrified that he had this giant heart attack with the gun in his hand and fell down onto the ice dead. It was minus 40 degrees. He froze into a solid block and had to be chipped off. So it was all rather jolly, but it meant that I didn't get my story.
It was all rather jolly. And then the polar bears ate it like a popsicle.
Yeah, so I didn't get my story. But what I did do is spend quite a bit of time. Then I went back to the Arctic, kind of mooching around. And I mean, I just love those sort of, all those kind of marginal places where really interesting things happen. And I found out all sorts of exciting things like the North American Arctic, so Alaska and the Canadian Arctic, is where the Canadian and US authorities put all their witness protection people, of course.
Oh, God.
Because who's going to get them up there? And so when you come
it's
across...
just full of really nervous people watching over their shoulders.
It's full of suspicious-looking white people in bad wigs.
It sounds a bit like Bristol, actually.
Imagine you were like Hawaiian and had spent 30 years in the sun and suddenly you're in Alaska. It's like cruelty.
Yeah. But it's safe.
Well, and it's an amazing place, and it's really changing at the moment. You know, while I was up there, there was the first sort of Hells Angels drug bust, where some Hells Angels had tried to drive their Harley Davidsons across the sea ice from Greenland with a shit ton. Can I say shit ton?
You
I just
can,
said it.
absolutely.
With a shit ton of speed, I think it was, and realised when they got to the other side, there wasn't anyone living who could buy this stuff because they were in the middle of the tundra.
A couple of seals hopped up on top of it.
Oh, go on, give us a snort. We'll have some.
God, it'd be a laugh.
Yeah, so, and it has a murder rate akin per head of population to Mexico or South Africa. It's a very, very high murder rate.
High. That is high.
Everyone's got guns, and there, at the time I was there, in Arctic Canada, which is an area about the size of India, so we're talking stonking territory, there was precisely how many investigative police specialists, so effectively a detective? I'll tell you, 1.
Oh, I was going to go for like 3 or 5, you know, I was pushing the boat out. 1.
And so
did they just not bother, or did they just say, oh, well, you've killed yourselves, never mind?
All kinds of reasons for that. Political reasons, funding reasons, racism reasons. The indigenous people, generally speaking, do not trust what they call Southern law. They don't talk to police. Very often the forensics is all gone because the snow melts, and so it takes the forensics with it. There's often these murders happen in tiny little communities where everyone knows who did it, but no one's saying. So it was all those things that I wanted to explore, really. It's a kind of epic scale place, but with these tiny little kind of communities that almost like, Midsummer Murders, where there's 25 murders happening, but actually for real. And no
absolutely the opposite of cozy. Bloody freezing. Is that a new genre?
It's cold.
I had a really interesting series of conversations with the guy who'd been the head of homicide in Arkansas in Alaska, and again, it was one of those places, so much of he was just telling me this amazing story about finally catching up with the serial killer who had been killing for 13, 14 years, who had finally sort of done something on their own patch and got a bit greedy for the limelight because they suddenly saw the effect of it, but had managed to keep the body looking fresh, enabled him to put makeup on it and pretend to do a ransom for it on a press, then in response to a sort of press call for this missing girl. And because it was so cold, he'd basically just frozen her in a storage unit out the back of his building yard, and rolled her up in a blanket, and she was just covered in ice. And so 3 months later, sort of defrosted her, put some makeup on her, and took a photo holding that day's paper and pretended she was still alive. And the police were like, "She looks a bit odd, but maybe she's just scared," And it really sort of twisted the way they were able to track the case. And he sort of kept it going for about a year, with the thought that maybe she was alive or maybe there's stuff going on. But it's all down to, and he said, the landscape and the territory and people's resistance and reluctance to talk, and the fact that it was all so wild and open, just meant that they were dealing with a terrible, clever killer and a terrible, treacherous landscape at the same time. And it was just, this is perfect. I'm going to write all this down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that really struck me being in the Arctic, because of, the Arctic is the best place to murder someone. If you want to get away with it, it's huge. There's no one looking. The people who are looking aren't saying anything. The forensics is shot to shit. No one's going to come up for 3 weeks anyway, if they come up at all. And there are a lot of dodgy people up there. There are a lot of people up there who should know better. And they're up there because they wouldn't flourish anywhere else. Either they're in witness protection, or they're on the run, or on the lam. And no one gives away anyone's business. And it's a very, it's also a world, and this really interested me because my detective, my sort of amateur sleuth, is a mixed race woman, but she's half Inuit. Their traditional skills, the Inuit traditional skills, are the skills of a forensic scientist. They work with bones. If you go in the tundra, because nothing, as you said, nothing really rots. It's covered in bones, human bones, caribou bones, walrus bones. There's bones everywhere. And these people are hunters. They know how to butcher a body. They know how the difference between a particular bore of gauge of gun is going to do a particular kind of damage. They know how to track someone's footprints. They're kind of detectives of the landscape. So that for me was, it was a whole series of things that came together, and not least because I felt that this was one of the most fascinating parts of the world, and no one was really writing about it in a way that felt real. And I think it's, until you've been up there, it's not a place that you can make up in your head.
No, exactly.
There's one of the examples that I give is that rainbows aren't rainbows are, they're not a hemisphere, they're not, sorry, a semicircle, they're circular. So rainbows just go all around the sun.
Yeah.
And that's because of some weird geomagnetic thing. But there's all kinds of weird stuff like that. You know, how it feels when the little tear ducts in your eyes feel like little ice boulders because they're all iced up. Or your nose hairs are kind of being ripped out by the icicles that are hanging off your nose. And of course, what you do when you need to use the bathroom, as the Americans would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of that stuff. It's just, as you say, you can't imagine it and you can't research it without going there and feeling it, because it's that detail that sort of carries through, isn't it? It's the intimate understanding of the small things.
Yeah, and how also, I think if you're from the, you know, if you're from a kind of temperate zone in the West, or you're not faced with those kind of levels of danger all the time. It's really super dangerous place because of, not just because of polar bears. I got stampeded by muskox. Those things are not clever and not funny. And you don't want them coming at you at 35 miles an hour.
Nope.
It's, you start you can die of cold in 4 or 5 minutes.
Goodness.
I mean, that's really easy murder, isn't it?
Really? Yeah.
Just lock the door and go, nah, you're not coming in. Yeah.
No, people actually die all the time because they get pissed and they go out on the ice and they don't realize how cold it is because they're pissed.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, 10 minutes later, curtains.
You know when they go, oh, you can get out of this, you'll get in witness protection. I'd be like, no, you're all right. I'll
let the mafia get me.
Yeah, I'd rather that. I don't mind being courted. Just I'll just take the mafia, thanks. Jesus, amazing.
Yeah, I'm pleased I asked that. That was really, I like the extremes of life. I absolutely love. So that was really cool. Thank you.
Well, thanks for asking. It was a great question because I could just chatter forever about that.
Yeah, place. Very, very cool.
Yeah, make me stop.
Well, I asked you before, do you fancy doing a little reading to bring us back onto Two Wrongs?
Sure, yeah, a very short one. It's always difficult to find somewhere, a spot that doesn't have any spoilers in it and actually is kind of makes sense on its own. Anyway.
Are you going to read the about the author section?
I'm not sure that makes any sense. Okay, so it's a little bit from the beginning. A woman called Sandra, who is a bit part in the story. She'd just come off her shift, late night shift, cleaning in hospital, and she's going over she's walking over the Clifton Suspension Bridge to get home, and she sees a young woman on the bridge. She wonders how the young woman can think of leaving this city that she, Sandra, loves so much, this wonderful stone city with its dark history, its independent, feral people, and its brilliant, hopeful bridge. She wonders if the young woman knows that this bridge was first conceived of by a woman with 6 children who drew up the plans and gave them to a man. Women are always building bridges, linking things, people, moving between worlds not made for them, always thinking up new ways to reach across the darkness, to connect. She wants to ask the young woman why she's doing this. How can anything be this bad? But she knows enough not to. Instead, she shouts out, "I'm Sandra, what's your name?" The young woman turns her head. Satnam.
Very nice. It really sets the scene, doesn't it? That's the whole bridge idea. I mean, that prologue, when I first read it, really, really drew me in. So yeah, that's great.
It's brilliant.
Thank
It
you.
really is. It's the, and I love that sort of fascination that as we were talking earlier about this sort of mother-daughter relationships, and that just that simple line of, you know, women are always building bridges. It's just, you go, yeah. That's it's a central theme. It's a core. It's brilliant. I love it.
Thank you. Well, as I said, you know, a lot of it is about character-wise, about how Honor and Nevis, mother and daughter, through the terrible events that they're about to go through, build a bridge back to one another.
Yeah, it's just perfect. Good choice of reading.
Yeah, really, really good. At this stage, we like to play a little game. Are you interested in playing a game?
Always interested, up for a game.
Lovely. Have you ever heard, well, this isn't linked to the game, but have you ever read any of Matt Veselovsky's books?
No, Governor, guilty as charged.
He gave us the game, so this is what he gave us when he was on the show.
Okay.
I'm actually obliged to recommend people read, although you should read these books because they are bad. And we said it.
Yes. So it's called the 1-Star Game, and what I did was look up your reviews, very good reviews, and I picked someone who gave you a less than favorable review. And what I've done is
bring it on.
Well, I'm not going to read it out. I'm not going to be cruel, but what I've done is looked at what else they've reviewed, and you just have to guess whether they've given that item 1 star or 5 stars.
Okay. After we play the game, I will tell you some of my 1-star reviews.
Excellent.
Because they're etched into my brain. Let's do it.
Now, this person amazed me because usually I just look at the first couple, but this one I really got to know because she gave your book 1.3 stars. She gives lots of things very decimalized stars. So yeah, I assume it's a she because I think she said something about an item of clothing. The first thing that she's reviewed is a mains adapter. So, you know, like the boxes where you can plug it into the wall and then you can plug 3 more plugs into it, like a little square box.
Multi-socket mains adapter.
Yes.
Very handy item.
You'd think.
A handy item, but you have to know what you're doing. And I'm assuming that this person, having given my book 1.3 stars, has no idea what she's doing. So I'm going for 0.6 of a star.
I think she's probably given it 4.2 stars.
She gave it 5 stars. 5 full stars.
You said she was specific.
Well, with you here. So impressive mains adapter. I have been impressed with his mains adapter. At this price and quality, I may have to think about investing in a few more.
She's going to burn her house down.
She is.
You do that, love. Yeah, you invest.
She likes that it's got 2 USB ports alongside the 3 plugs, and also a red warning light to show when the power is on.
To show you not to stick your fingers in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she liked that. And then the other item that she did was a little duck toy for her dog. A little like sort of chew toy.
Duck toy for the dog. I'm going for it's got to be 3 stars.
3, okay.
For the duck.
I'm going for under 1. I think the duck probably perished quite quickly and therefore was unsafe or squeaked too much.
Okay. Now, what she's done in quite a lot of her reviews is give the now review and then say, but if it's durable, I would have given it 5 or she's got, so it's not just the there and then. She's thinking
got
about
too
the
much
future.
time on her hands.
She does. She liked the clock that she really liked the clock. And this is going off task slightly. She gave the clock 4 stars because she thought it was probably she would like to have paid around £10 when it was £10.99. So she gave the duck toy 4 stars, but you can tell she loves it She said, this has gone so well with my Springer Spaniel. Toys that have this variety of textures do tend to meet with her approval, as they seem to stimulate the senses to a greater degree. However, it is early days, so not yet in a position to vouch for the toy's durability claims. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Well, we'll have to live in suspense, won't we?
Yeah. Jesus.
She does like a little story.
She does. She really does. Yeah, I'm obsessed with her at the minute.
I can tell that she's going to appear in one of your books, isn't she?
She really
Absolutely.
is. Yeah. The Cookster is her name.
Quite possibly as the victim at this point.
She might appear in all of ours as a different character altogether.
What are your favourite 1-stars?
I think I'm not gonna list them in ascending or descending order, because I think they've all got value. But about as interesting as a long ride in a mobility scooter.
Oh, I love that.
Which actually I do want to meet the person who gave me that review, because I think they'd be a laugh to go out on a good night out on.
In a mobility scooter.
One particularly puzzling one was far too many words.
Right.
Just far too many, not a little bit too many words, or
Not
lots
a
too
little
many,
too wordy.
just beyond in the word department, just beyond the pale.
I opened this and there were words on every page.
My first book was called Motel Nirvana. It was a travel book, and someone wrote on it, rubbish, no mention of Kurt Cobain. There were no wolves in this movie on Wolf of Wall Street. You know, it's those kind of people that you just like, yes, you're a genius.
Yeah.
And then there's always the head scratcher one, isn't there? One of my head scratcher ones was, I'd give this 5 stars, but it's part of a series, so 3.
Yeah, right.
Why?
Good.
Oh.
We had somebody give a very long and detailed 1-star review for one of the books we published, which basically boiled down to the fact that they didn't like the outfit the woman was wearing in silhouette on the cover because it made her think of her granny. And you're like, I can't help you with this. Sorry, don't buy the book. It's not for you.
And P.S. Nor can anyone else, guaranteed.
This is your psychology training coming out now, isn't it? This is what you learn in 101. You can't fix everyone.
I think from now on, because my dog does rip up all my books, I'm just going to give everything I read 1 star and say, dog ripped it up.
Yeah.
1 star.
1 star. Cover wasn't strong enough. Dog ripped. 1 star. Oh man, well, you gotta love them. They're the grist to our mill.
We do.
Our beloved 1-star reviewers and their mad logic. Mel, thank you so much for joining us.
It's such a pleasure.
It's been a whistling hour.
It has. It's caught in, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We've not asked our last question. What are you reading at the minute?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I am. Is it allowed to be a non-crime book?
It's allowed to be anything you like.
I've just finished today, actually, a book by Alison Bechdel, who's a graphic novelist, who I am all about. And it's a graphic novel about her obsession with exercise, which I am not all about. But it's absolutely fabulous, and I love a graphic novel.
Very cool. Sounds great.
What are you reading, Chris?
Well, I'm rereading because I read it. I got a little while ago. The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce, which is really good, really good. So yeah, well worth the read.
Oh, I just finished today reading the first 30 pages of Chris McDonald's potential new book, which is very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Right. We'll take it.
But it might be part of a series, so
yeah. Well,
stars.
Hipster 3-star.
I'll make sure it's not now so that it can't fall into that category now that I know there are people out there hating a series.
Probably far too many words as well, but other than that, I think
just don't put on just don't put on the jacket for lovers of plug adapters everywhere.
For lovers of multi-socket plug adapters and duck dog toys. God, I'd love it if we could do stuff like that on jackets. Just take somebody else's review and go, it wasn't as good as the plug socket. The Cookster, Amazon. I think it would encourage more people to read it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we digress. Thank you ever so much, Mel. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, both. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you. You've right cheered me up. You have.
Right cheered
good.
Up. Well, fantastic, and lovely to even virtually meet you, and hopefully one day we can all be at festivals once more.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Talking about killing people in person. Hurrah!
Is your book 99p for the rest of the month?
Oh yes, I should have said that, shouldn't I?
Yes, well done.
Yeah.
Publishers love you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Yes, 99p on Kindle, for heaven's sake.
What's not to like? Do you know what that's cheaper than? A multi-plug adapter. For that price, get two.
But I might invest.
Multiple times.
If Kindle is your thing, do go get it for 99p, but it really is worth buying the hardback because it is a thing of colourful beauty. So get it in any format you can.
Get it in both.
Get it in both. Wait for the hardback in June as well.
Right. Oh, I think Mel's frozen just as we're saying goodbye.
Well, we said lots of nice things, so
now we can say all the horrible things before. I know.
Are you good at accents? We could mimic her.
No, but I might cut together a bye from earlier.
Yeah, which is saying like, buy my book.
Buy my book. Right, I'm gonna sign us off anyway.
Lovely. Goodbye.
Right. Bye.
Bye.